Welcome to the Thriving Artist Podcast, where we share strategies and support for artists to thrive.
We know that the art world can feel like a lonely place, and we want to provide a network of support, impactful strategies, and an abundance of encouragement to help you grow your authentic art career.
We're your hosts. I'm Jamie Smith.
And I'm Kaylan Butine, and we are also the co-founders of the Thrive Together Network, a community of female and non-binary identifying artists and artists who are caregivers.
We truly believe in community over competition, and we're so glad you're here. Enjoy this episode.
Hi, friends. I'm Kaylan Butine, one of your hosts.
And I'm Jamie Smith, your other host.
And here we are today. We're talking with you at another episode of the Thriving Artist Podcast. We can't wait to share in a conversation about how to help you speak more boldly as an artist. And just for me in general, I'm pretty extroverted. Sharing my opinion about things is not something I usually shy away from, but I will say sometimes when it's my turn to talk about my art, that's when that doubt really comes in. Jamie, I'm wondering if you struggle with confidence when talking about your art.
I feel like when it comes to our art, it's a whole different ballgame. I find it very daunting, I feel very exposed and vulnerable. So it's definitely a hard one. And so today we really wanted to talk about how we believe you can speak more boldly. And we put some of these things into practice and they really do help. So our tip number one is to call yourself an artist. And we've talked about this before and how important it is to kind of from within know that you're serious and really claim that space. But it is really hard, especially at the beginning, if you're not used to it. People, muggles, as I call them, the outside world, sometimes struggle with that answer. But actually, we need to do the hard work of practicing and just doing it. There's no real magic answer there. But by calling yourself an artist over and over and over again, you're going to be able to claim that space and be more bold as you practice.
Absolutely. And I feel like it's one of those things where we can give you every trick in the book, but until you decide that you are an artist and you choose to believe that for yourself, right? All of our tricks hopefully could help you a little bit, but it's never going to, at the end of the day, like fix that for you. And we really feel like talking boldly about your art is just so connected to your belief about your identity. So we just want you to claim that. We are artists. Jamie and I are artists. We've learned to claim that for ourselves. And we believe that you are an artist too. We want you to accept that. We want you to proclaim that and just let that truth sort of help you speak more confidently and boldly about your art. Okay, let me move us into tip number 2, because, that one is kind of more theoretical. It's about the way we feel. But this one, of course, I was thinking about, well, what are some practical ways that we can actually speak more boldly? And I was trying to think of when do we need this boldness, right? When we're thinking about our art. And one of the first things that came to mind is when you meet somebody new and they're like, well, what do you do? And it's like,
a hard question.
Yeah. So tip number 2 for speaking more boldly about your art is to have a pitch. So when someone asks you what you do, it's totally okay to have a little rehearsed response kind of in the back corner of your mind. You can say, I am an artist and I make work about so this and that, right? Whatever. But knowing exactly what you'll say if you meet that person at a park, when you're out walking Rhea, the dog, or if you walk into your elevator building or whatever it is, I think just having that kind of pitch in the back of your mind is just going to help you be more confident and bold. And this is actually something that we will be talking about in our Art and Tea sessions in April, the art of the elevator pitch. And it's a big thing that I have done with Isadora Stowe, my co-leader of the course that we taught in the past called Wearing All the Hats. Just having kind of that language and that pitch developed as an artist, it's just another tool to have in your toolbox. So we would invite you to follow up on this tip number 2, to literally take some time, write down what you would say when you meet somebody new and they say, "What do you do?" Right? Come up with 2 to 3 brief sentences about your art and your life as an artist. Definitely keep it simple. So this is something you can almost memorize, but be very comfortable with, and just have in your back pocket for when you're asked these questions.
It's so important because, most people get to say, I'm a teacher, and everyone knows exactly what that life looks like. But
Yes.
as an artist, it just feels very nebulous. It's very confusing. And so, our tip number 3 is to make it relatable,
Mhm.
especially when we're talking about the type of work we do, because we do want to make sure the person is engaged and kind of can picture our artwork. But it's so easy to do art speak and people just
Mhm.
shut off. And we want to make sure people really get connected to what we do because they could be a future collector.
Yes.
And we also have a really cool job. We have this really amazing thing we do. So we want people to kind of see that and not get flustered because we feel a little bit nervous in the moment. So, one thing that can be hard is actually explaining the kind of work you do and kind of getting your concepts across. So, my work in particular, my artwork, yes, there's a lot of flowers, there's a lot of pretty things happening, but my work's actually about loss. It's actually about losing different family members in my life. It's about the grief of going through fertility. So, it's actually a very hard subject to draw people into. And so I have to really kind of work hard and really think about how am I going to share this and draw someone in, because I will say my concepts are the most universal.
Right.
Everyone gets those things. Everyone's had to go through them. So I want to make sure that I can explain them. So something that I will say right away is really kind of ground them in what my medium is. But I won't use the word medium because most people, most muggles
Right.
have
They're
no
like,
idea what
"What's
I'm
that?"
talking about. So I definitely will proclaim at the beginning of the sentence, I'm an artist. And I use actually mostly black and white pen and ink for my artwork. I draw. I also will do wooden wall hanging sculptures. So I will paint on wood and actually place that right on the wall because I believe there's too many squares and rectangles on the wall in your apartment, and that will connect them to, thinking
Mhm.
about their art connection. And so I do different shapes and I place them in the wall, different wall hanging sculptures. I also do installation work. So then I want to say, my work is actually a lot about personal loss. It's about grief. But my artwork is a way that I can express this to the world. And
Mm.
I do a lot of writing about my work. And I do a lot of thinking and meditation around these really hard subjects that we all have to go through, like grief and loss. And then
Mm.
I might follow up with a question to say, how do you get through hard times in your life? Do you write? For me, art making, I feel really honored that I get to be an artist and get to work through my problems in that way. And that really opens up a conversation. It's about art, it's about my work, but it's something that anyone, no matter what they do, can kind of jump into. So having a question at the end and kind of relating to that other person and making sure that you really work on your vocabulary, not getting stuck into the art speak. You're not talking to another artist. If I was talking to another artist, it would be a whole different story.
Yep.
I would say I make monochromatic drawings. I have wall hanging sculptures. It's just different, right?
Well, then we're really trying to impress, but with
Oh,
with
get
the
that art speak
muggles, we're trying
going.
to convince. We're like,
Yes,
art is something you all need. It's cool to be an artist.
exactly. So just really focusing on, who you're talking to. And we want every muggle's experience with an artist to be an easy and good one because you're representing artists all over the world that need collectors and that want to share their artwork. So you're an ambassador for the art world to the muggles. So we
That's
want to
right.
make sure we're relatable.
Absolutely. Jamie, I loved what you shared about, just kind of taking this idea of, sometimes our art is about this hard thing, but there's always a way that we can kind of break it down and make it accessible for people. It's just to show you an example of what I would say if I'm meeting someone new and they ask me what I do, I would say I'm an artist who uses abstract painting and vintage textiles and quilting to reflect my experiences about caregiving And to talk about generational legacies of care, I think often about my grandmothers. We have some old quilts in my family that I reference as family heirlooms. So I'm wondering, if you have any special heirlooms in your life or things that you kind of hold on to that remind you of somebody that you love, which I feel like is a very relatable, right? Like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
I got this pot holder from Hazel or what, whatever.
totally. I think too, it just feels like even hearing you speak, I'm like, I can start to picture your work. It also gives more
Yeah.
depth to your work. So I think just really making sure that we are considering that not everyone is artists. And sometimes I think we get kind of weird interactions from the muggles. And I think part of it is because it's our responsibility to kind of educate
Yeah.
other people on our work and on just being an artist in general. And that's unfortunate that not everyone has an artist in their life that they can understand.
Hmm.
But I know for me, it took a lot of practice. When I left teaching to then be an artist, there was a huge shift in how I was received and just the confusion around that. And so it's been a lot of work on my end to kind of from within, because it starts with you to proclaim it and then also explain it really well.
Make it relatable.
Yeah, and I love this tip number 4 is that we actually want you to state what you're proud of. So this is the thing, we want to be happy artists. We want to be excited by what we do, and it's so easy for someone just off the cuff to say, "Oh, that's hard. That's a hard
Hmm.
choice." And I
Yeah.
had that happen all the time from being teaching. "Oh, you're leaving a lot of security there." Like
that
people would say,
that shift in the pitch. Oh.
"Oh,
Yes.
okay."
Yes.
But when I was excited about it, of course, then all of a sudden it was like, wow, you're following your heart. Like you're really leading a different life. All of a sudden it was a shift. And you can do that as literally using the prompt that I'm really proud of blank. And the more you start to kind of think about these things, you're going to feel more confident and it's going to kind of ripple off of you until to the person you're speaking it through too. So I, especially last year, I did my test show. I did a solo
Hmm.
show. I hadn't done one in so long. And I find when I talk to people now, yes, that was 7 months ago. That was, 10 months ago now. It's just a long time ago, but it's something I'm still really proud of. So I will share about my art and say, actually, last year I took a huge risk and I did a solo show about sort of grief and loss. And it was just really well received. And that now is an exciting thing to share. And it
Hmm.
feels really, really good. So kind of going through and thinking of what you're proud of and not being afraid to proclaim it.
Yeah, and I think too, just as female identifying artists, we struggle with this, right? It's so much easier to talk about the other people in our life that we're proud of, spouses or kids or, our parents or whoever it is. And so just taking that extra step to identify what you're proud of and focus on it and actually state it when you're in conversation about your work, I think will help us, kind of feel more bold, and just more celebratory and excited. Like you said, I think it is really important to focus on, kind of the mindset of growth and excitement versus scarcity when we're talking about our work, Jamie. So thanks for
Mm-hmm.
bringing that up. Okay, let's wrap up with tip number 5 for speaking more boldly about your art. This one is a 3-part process, so stay with me. I want you to write, reflect, and practice. And, it's obviously a 3-part process, but they're all connected. So just reminding you that when you write about your art, when you take time to craft an artist statement, when you write about your art for Instagram, when you do studio journaling, when you show up to our art and tea sessions every week, if you're a network member and we give you prompts to like write about what you're making or your art career, right? All of that writing really helps us build confidence and inform the way we speak. And it's not just the writing though. I think the part 2 is reflecting about the writing, right? So like we can write all day, but if we don't actually pause and look back at what we've written and think about how much we've grown and reflect on that writing. If you create an amazing artist statement and you just put it on your website and you never look at it again, well, that's like a tool and that's work that you really did that you can mine that, right? You can memorize your artist statement and have it in the back of your head. So you have all those talking points just like fresh in your mind. How bold and confident would you be if you kind of had that back in there, right? So make sure you're doing that reflection on your writing and actually going back and reading it. I just want to mention the Thriving Artist Map. This is our workbook that we created for our whole community that we use kind of as our foundation for going through the year. It's full of activities and prompts, writing, all of this stuff that we do together as a network on the Thrive Together network. And that is just a great tool for kind of doing this writing, reflection, and practicing. And then, that practice, that third part of this final tip, that one I feel like really comes with being in community with other artists, right? Like other artists are places where you get to dialogue about your work in places where where it feels safe. You don't feel like you're kind of caught off guard and you have to make yourself relatable and do these things. It's like, oh, these people get me, they understand me. And so, for us, when you're a member on the Thrive Together network, like we meet every week on our NT. Zoom room breakout sessions are like part of the programming. We get together in little small groups and we talk about these prompts. So just having that like practice doing studio visits, I feel like is a big part of developing your confidence and learning how to speak more boldly about your art. Is there anything I missed, Jamie?
Well, I just think it creates a bubble, a little safety bubble to then, the nest that we can just then go out into the real world. And but it's a place to practice. And we also do our Crit Crew program, and that's just wrapping up right now. It's a 9-week program. And I got to be a mentor in our last session with it. And, that is, I hear all the time, it's a confidence booster, and that boldness is connected to that. And so it's a place to actually really talk about your work, because that is Crit Crew. The whole point is showing your work, writing about it, reflecting, and practicing in a small group of artists with a mentor. And we have a visiting artist that comes in and does the critique. So it's really an atmosphere of, in 9 weeks, it's a ton of growth because you're having to really share what you do, really talk about these ideas, all of that kind of stuff as you put yourself out there, whether it's, joining a community, doing a paid program, just writing about your work. These little things add up, and it creates a boldness as you go out in the world. And I really do think we're ambassadors for our work and we're ambassadors for artists. So we need to take it seriously. So
of course,
we need to be bold. And of course, for us, you can always head to our website, Thrive Together Network. It has a rundown of all of these different things that you can offer. But yeah, we really want to create a place where artists can be bold. It's a big part of what we do.
So we just want to say thank you for listening today. We would love for you to share this episode with a friend, even invite them to be your bold art accountability buddy, right? Talk and encourage each other to talk more confidently. As always, Jamie and I are here for you. We are cheering you on, and we believe in the work you are doing as thriving artists. Thanks for listening.